Hi, this is Joe Chambers from Chambers Custom Pistols here in Nebraska, coming to you from my bench where I teach 1911 University. Many of you have asked me to do reviews of popular 1911 and 2011 style pistols, and so this is the first one that we're going to do together. It is a stainless steel government model 45 by a pretty popular maker. The retail on it is approximately $5,200. It was sent in to me to evaluate if it was a good candidate to have a barrel fit to it, because it recently came back from the factory where it was made with a new barrel in it, and we'll talk about the fitment of that. So with that, this is 1911 University. Math don't lie. 3.14 is always pi. So this is a popular stainless steel government model 45. Standard fare in my videos is I don't talk about the name or the make model of the pistol, but you'll be able to tell what it is over time as we're working on it, and I show you different views of different things that you can see as you're watching the video happen. If you follow me on Patreon, then you have seen the write-up on this gun. And so we've already done all the measurements on this pistol, and what I'm going to be doing with you during this review process is just going through some of these measurements in the next 45 minutes and talking to you about what the measurements mean and what they should be and what they are. So with that, let's discuss this pistol. General physical characteristics of this gun, it's a nice gun. It's nice looking. It has a Novak cut rear sight on it with the particular manufacturer of the pistol's sights put on here. It has a gold line front, or a gold bead front sight rather. I don't like the fact that the gold bead front sight overhangs the bevel job they'd done to the slide. If they'd have just done a little less beveling, then the front sight wouldn't hang over the slide. I think for a $5,200 pistol, that's pretty unacceptable. I also don't like the fact that the bevels don't angle in the same direction on both sides. They're kind of off and wonky. This one goes straight here and straight here. This side angles down and in, and this side angles up and in. Those are minor cosmetic details that guys like myself see and go, $5,200, huh? I don't like that. Those are things that I wouldn't let slide out of my shop from my guys or myself. It does have nice 25 LPI checkering on the front strap and the mainspring housing in the back of the slide, if that's your thing. It has what appears to be 50 LPI checkering on the underside of the trigger guard, which that's not really my thing, but if that's what you like, they do a really nice job of the checkering. I imagine it's machine checkered from the looks of it. Nice sanded finish. This particular gun has approximately 4,500 rounds through it, but it has been back recently to the manufacturer to have a new barrel installed. Now, in order to do these reviews, one of the things that we have to do first and foremost is we have to set forth what a standard is. And so when I'm reviewing these pistols for you guys, I'm going to tell you very plainly what the numbers are on the pistol and what that means for accuracy versus the numbers that we use to build pistols ourselves here at Chambers Custom. So to start that off, we'll talk about the bushing and the barrel OD and the differences there. This barrel measures 0.5818 and the bushing measures 0.583. The difference in that is 1.0012, so a little over 1 thousandths. Our standard when we fit a barrel to a bushing is half that, 0.005. So it's a little bit over double what our standard is when we fit a bushing to a barrel. That directly affects accuracy downrange. Now, does it affect accuracy that most people will notice? Probably not. The vast majority of us that shoot pistols, myself included, are not national champion caliber pistol shooters because, well, we just don't strive to do that, or we don't get enough practice. But it does, it is a tolerance issue that I like to discuss with clients because it does matter in the long range game with pistols. The other thing that is slightly more concerning than that in regards to the bushing fit is the bushing fit to the slide. And this particular gun, the slide measures .7016, and the bushing measures, the OD of the bushing measures .701. What that means is that when I depress the recoil rod plug, I can turn this bushing by finger. I don't need a wrench to turn it. So it's visibly loose turning it. That's a 0.006 thousandths difference, a little over half thou. Our standard tolerance on that when we fit a bushing to a gun is 0.0002. So it's 3 times what we would allow to come out of our shop. And when you get a gun from us, you absolutely have to have a bushing wrench, a metal one, to turn the bushing, because I don't want any play on the front end of the gun that's going to negatively affect accuracy. The most concerning thing about the fitment of the bushing on this gun, however, is the fact that it has 7 thousandths play fore and aft. And what that means is either the slot in the slide where the bushing locks in place was cut too far forward, or the bump on the bushing itself that locks in that slot was cut too far forward. That allows the bushing to slide in and out as the gun is cycling. Now, if the bushing were fit properly to the barrel, that would cause some reliability issues, meaning the gun wouldn't be able to go into battery consistently. We've actually seen that. We had a gun recently leave here that we didn't know that was the case because the bushing was fit so tight side to side. And over time, as the gun shot, the bushing loosened up and was popping out. And we had to have the gun come back to the shop and fix it. It was a relatively easy fix. But I don't like having that stuff leave the shop anyway. That's a problem. You don't want any movement of the bushing in and out on the gun. And for those of you watching, and you're like, oh, Joe put his hand in front of the gun. Yeah, I checked the gun before I started the video. It's empty. There's nothing in here. We don't allow loaded ammo on the bench. So if you're watching this video and you're like, oh, he put his hand in front of the gun, it's okay. It's all right. It'll be okay. All right. Barrel hood to breech face gap. On this particular gun, it's 2 thousandths. That's not a huge deal. Tolerance range, we strive to make that fit less than 1 thousandths. We want it to hold a 1 thousandths feeler gauge, but we want it to drop free under its own weight. You can have a barrel hood gap up to 2.5 thousandths before it starts adversely affecting accuracy and the longevity of the slide up top and the barrel up top. So the fact that it's 2 thousandths, that's actually, it was better than expected. Most production and semi-custom guns that I see come in here range between 2 and 6 thousandths on the barrel hood gap. The chamber depth on this particular gun is .8975, which is right there at the SAAMI spec. When you figure in the fact that it has an extra thousandths on the hood gap, you're right there at the SAAMI spec of .898. Our standard on the chamber depth is .905. And the reason for that is a lot of our clientele shoot lead semi-wad cutters. And if you have a SAAMI chamber depth, that chamber depth is for jacketed hollow points or of some designs or ball ammo. And so if you have a SAAMI chamber depth of 898, like this one is, you may experience some instances of lead hollow point or lead wad cutter bullets not going into battery. What's more concerning is the chamber is not finish reamed. So it's tight. And we see this on every single production and semi-custom gun that comes through the shop for work. None of them have a finish ream chamber. And that, to me, that's a major oversight in regards to how guns are finished. There's no reason not to spin a finish reamer in the chamber. Make sure there's no bumps, no lumps, no unevenness. Make sure the chamber's round and true with the bore as possible. But I digress. That's pretty much industry standard, is just to leave them as they come from the barrel manufacturer. The barrel does have a deep dish crown, which I'm personally not a fan of. It directly impacts accuracy in a negative manner based on my experience of testing guns with ransom rest. But that's a discussion for a different day. The slide stop pinhole in the frame measures 0.2025, and the slide stop pin diameter is 0.1995. That's a difference of 0.003, which isn't abnormal in a gun like this that's been shot 4,500 rounds. You expect the slide stop hole to change a little bit. I would assume that this is a brand new slide stop, given that it's a brand new barrel that was installed from the factory, but you know what they say about assuming, so you never know. Typically when we build a gun, the tolerances on that slide stop pinhole are a little tighter. I like to keep them around 1.5 to 2 thousandths out of the box. The extractor is, the length of it is 2.248, which is within the tolerance range that we look for on an extractor. It's fit well. That actually surprised me. Whoever did this extractor knows what they're doing with extractors. The nose of the tip of the hook doesn't touch the round. The round is being held in place by the rim of the case in the rebate of the extractor, which is exactly what you want. The concerning thing with the extractor is it moves fore and aft in the slide 3 to 5 thousandths, depending on the position of the firing pin plate and the hammer and all that. That can cause some accuracy and reliability issues because the round is not being fed up in the same exact manner every time, and it's not being held in the chamber in the same place every time. But given the fact that the chamber isn't finish reamed, all that becomes a non sequitur. It doesn't matter. Well, it does, but it doesn't matter as much as it could. The ejector length is 1.015, which is approximately 65 thousandths less than what we leave ours at 1.08. The reason we leave them at 1.08 is so that the empty round impacts the ejector as soon as possible, as soon as the slide is open, allowing the case to begin clearing out. It's also shaped at a forward angle like this, which in my opinion is incorrect, because I shape the ejectors in the direction that I want the round to go. If I want the round to go straight out the side of the gun, if it's a slide mounted, like a bullseye gun with a slide mounted scope, or a USPSA open gun with a frame mounted scope that sits really close, I want it to go more out the side. If it's a standard iron sighted or an RDSM gun, I want it to come out at about 3 to 5 o'clock. So I angle the ejector slightly in that direction to aid in feeding. What you generally get with a gun like this is you get erratic ejection. You get rounds that go at 3 o'clock, at 1 o'clock, at 2 o'clock, bounce off your head sometimes. That's just the way they eject when the ejector is set up like this. They use a small radius firing pin stop in this gun, which I find is curious because it's not necessary. But then the gun's not sprung how I would spring the gun either. We'll get into that here in a few minutes, but it's a little light on the back end. It's fine on the front end. So they were trying to compensate for that good old 45 recoil by putting a flat base firing pin stop in the gun. And what that actually does is just stall the gun out. It prevents the gun from functioning in a proper manner. All right, so let's talk barrel fit. There isn't any. It's a $5,200 gun that has 10 to 20% barrel fit on the legs with the slide stop. And to me, that's unacceptable in my opinion. We strive for a very minimum, the very minimum that I'll accept is 75% contact on each leg. We strive for 90 to 100%, and that's what we get almost every time. The fact that this has a brand new barrel fit in it, and it's still at 10 to 20% contact on each leg, means that that's just a drop-in barrel. And that's exactly what it is. There are literally no signs on this barrel at all, zero, of any fitting being done. The barrel was dropped in the gun. The end. The slide stop hole in the link is slightly undersized by a thousandths, which can present some timing issues, which over time can affect the upper lugs of the slide and the barrel. However, being as the barrel leg height is 0.95 and the slides and the link bridge height is 0.95, they're the same height. What that means is that the barrel is actually sitting on the link and not on the barrel leg so much, and so the slide stop hole in the link being slightly undersized really becomes a non-issue. It's not super small like some that we've seen in the 204, 205 range, which does cause the gun to be mistimed. It's not overlinked where it's at like 215. I've seen that on a number of guns over the years. Again, where the gun is mistimed, it's too slow. The barrel can't get out of the way of the slide, so it adversely affects the upper lugs of the slide in pretty short order. So there's no fit. There's zero fit on this gun as far as the barrel goes. So we'll move from the barrel now into the slide to frame fit. You can hear, when you feel this gun, you can hear audibly that there is side to side movement. And when I measured the gun, what I found was the difference in the slide width and the frame width is 1.5 thousandths. Now, when we fit a stainless gun, my standard is it'll be a 0.5 thousandths tolerance. On a carbon steel, all carbon gun, it's 0.2 of 1 thousandths. To put that into perspective, a human hair is roughly 0.3 of a thousandths, 0.0003. So this is 5 times that, which means you're going to get some side-to-side play in the slide to frame. That directly affects accuracy downrange, and not in like 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch dimensions. It affects accuracy in like 1/2 inch to 1 inch dimensions. The bigger, the looser that gets, what that means is that the fact that the barrel isn't fit properly and the slide to frame is loose means that the bullet is not leaving the barrel from the same location every time because it can't be locked up properly. When you add in the fact that there is a combined tolerance difference in the up and down of approximately 4 thousandths, you have a gun that's really pretty loose. You can't perceive the up and down as easily because of the way the barrels fit in there, or the way the barrel is installed, I should say. But there is up and down movement. When you take the barrel out of the gun, you can feel the up and down movement of the slide to frame. It's about 3 times the amount up and down movement than how we fit guns here at the shop. And that again causes accuracy issues downrange. It causes vertical stringing. So if you're shooting this gun, what you're probably going to experience is a nice big round group. You're not going to see a whole lot of oddball up and down shots. You're not going to see a whole lot of oddball side to side shots. You're just going to see a nice big round group instead of a nice small round group. There's only 3 ways to fix that kind of problem in a gun like this. You can peen the frame and machine it to fit the slide. That's what old school gunsmiths did back in the day before we had TIG welders. You can TIG weld the frame up and remachine it to fit the slide, which is a very time consuming and costly endeavor. Or you can send the slide and frame off to Doug Jones at AccuRail and have him work his voodoo magic and put rails on the gun and make it fit much better as well. It doesn't really matter what you do to the gun. It's a $5,200 gun that doesn't have slide to frame fit and doesn't have barrel fit. That's where we're at this point in the review. I will have a conversation with the client in the coming days, and I will have to tell him that I do not suggest that he spends money fitting a new barrel to this gun, because he's not going to gain the accuracy potential out of it that he probably would desire for the money spent. Fitting a new barrel to this gun, quite frankly, would be a waste, because you're not going to be able to get the vertical play out of it or the horizontal play out of it by fitting a barrel. You're just putting a Band-Aid on a gushing wound is all you're doing. All right. One of the most concerning problems with this gun is the difference between the frame vertical impact surface and the barrel vertical impact surface. The frame measures 0.350 from the rear of the slide stop pinhole to the vertical impact surface, the viz, that's what we all call it. The barrel measures 335. Standard spec on a frame is 335 minus 5. And so what that means for the pistol is when the gun cycles, the barrel never impacts the frame. So the barrel's rearward movement is not being stopped by the frame hitting the barrel legs. The barrel's rearward movement is being stopped by the link stopping it on the slide stop. What that causes down the road is, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, the link is going to either A, stretch, or B, break. When the link breaks, what happens is the link always breaks on the backstroke. Always. Always, always. Because the barrel's being stopped at a sudden point, and when it gets stopped, it cracks, and it goes forward, and it's cracked, and then the next shot, it goes back, and it stops on the link again, and it breaks. And then when it goes back forward, the broken piece of the link gets caught underneath the barrel legs, and it's jammed in there, and the slides forward. Now you have a loaded round in the chamber, and you have a slide that you cannot move backwards with the hammer back. That's a problem. Then you have to disassemble the gun, the lower half of the gun, to get the trigger components, the fire control group out of the gun in order to hopefully pull the firing pin so that the round, you don't have to worry about the round going off while you're trying to get the slide either back so you can get the slide stop out, which is very unlikely, or machine the slide stop out of the gun so that you can get the slide off. All of these things are relatively costly and could be prevented if the frame was cut properly to begin with. I have over the years seen this problem with multitude of different makes and manufacturers of guns and frames. So it's not a common problem, but it's not an unknown problem. But it's a problem that nonetheless should not be there. Yeah. Trigger parts. The trigger in this gun feels fairly nice. It's a crisp trigger. There's no roll to it at all. There's very little take up in the trigger itself. The over travel's set rather tightly. The pre-travel's set rather tightly. The problem I have with the trigger is all of the trigger parts except for the hammer were dropped into this gun with no modifications. I caveat that with saying somebody did dress the sear spring a very little bit, not enough to make a difference. They basically just removed a burr that's commonly on the sear spring. So again, you have a $5,200 gun that has a drop-in disconnector, a drop-in hammer strut, a drop-in sear. There was nothing done to tune anything. There's no polishing, nothing that's going to add longevity, nothing that's going to improve the trigger over what it could be. Like I said, it's a fairly nice trigger, but it's not as nice as it could be. But here's the main problem with the trigger job on this gun. Keep in mind, this gun came from the factory recently with a new barrel, and here's the problem with the trigger job. The hammer follows every single time. Now, I don't drop guns as a regular course of action, because you can, if that happens, you can cause hammer sear engagement damage. There was already some damage caused to this sear before I got the gun in the shop, probably from the hammer dropping to half cock. That's a safety violation. That's a gunsmith safety violation. And if it left the shop, again, I have no way of knowing because it didn't come from the shop to me, it came from the client to me. But if it left the shop that way, that's an issue. That's a serious no-no. And the trigger is noticeably light. It's just right at 3 pounds, it's 3 pounds 4 ounces on NRA scales, which would be part and parcel to why it's dropping. The other part of the reason why it's dropping is because the sear hammer interface is really short. There's not a lot of primary on the sear face, which is causing that. So that's a pretty big fail for me. Overall impressions of the gun, it's a $5,200 semi-custom gun from a particular maker. I don't think that the grade of this gun is all that super, but other people tend to think it is. The ejection port is lowered slightly, but it's not cut to the same radius that we use that allows for empty cases to eject easily. The bevels are different sizes front and back and not in alignment on the front. So overall perception of the gun, it's a nice gun. Do I think that it's as fine of a pistol as they're made out to be for the price point? This is just my opinion, but no. I think for $5,200 the gun should have a barrel fit. I think for $5,200 the gun should not have drop-in trigger parts. I think for $5,200 the gun shouldn't drop to half cock. So there you have it. Let's slip the grips back on this so you can see what it looks like in total with the grips on it. They use slotted grip screws on this particular gun, which I'm personally not a fan of. Never been a fan of slotted grip screws. I find them to be kind of annoying, but nonetheless, it is what it is. I personally prefer hex head grip screws. There we go. Grips are all back on the gun. Again, it's a stainless government model 45 with no barrel fit, no real trigger job, no slide to frame fit. Front sight overhangs the front of the slide. Bushing moves fore and aft for $5,200. So I'm Joe Chambers with Chambers Custom, the 1911 University. And again, remember, math don't lie. 3.14 is always pi.